Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcast can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also follow wherever you listen to your podcast. High-Vibrational Wellness, Ways to Nourish Your Body Temple. Founder of the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy, CIFT, or CIFT, correct?
Yeah.
Nourish your soul. There we go. Yeah. She's a multi-modality healer with advanced certifications in food healing, theta healing, and EFT tapping. She holds a BS in food science, dietetics, and nutrition from California State University, Northridge, and top of the class in Jeff Premick's Conquering All Disease Advanced Food Healing Instructor Program. She's an international best-selling author, being a lead author of High-Vibrational Wellness, Intuitive Healing Therapies to Nourish Your Body's Temple or Body Temple. There's many bodies out there, and it needs it. And there's so much more in this bio, but that would take up the entire show. Let's welcome back to the show, Lainie Wulkan. Yeah. Welcome back.
It. I know. It's a little long. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be back. Good to see you, Paul.
Good to see you again. Good to see you again. And you're traveling.
Oh, girl. I don't even know what to say. Yes, I just came back from Nepal. I was there for extensive time. I'm just getting ready to leave for another trip. Yeah. Travel I've incorporated as much as I love it, which I do. It's my passion. I now have incorporated into having retreats all around the world because people love the teachings, and I have some fans all over the world now. Crazy. I mean, I've sent the original, as you know, the Food Healing Oracle deck to 35 countries, and people like to gather in person. So I am traveling quite a bit to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, since you were last on, you've had an update to the Food Healing Oracle deck, as well as a couple books.
Been that long.
Yeah, it has. It doesn't seem like it. So how did you become the food oracle?
Well, that goes way back, and what I could say about that is that I came mostly first as an oracle. I came from a very intuitive family. I came from a highly psychic, highly intuitive. My grandmother was the town psychic in Russia. I always had an oracle card or a tarot card in my hand as a child, teenager, college student, adult. And that was sort of the one side of me. And then the other side of me kind of happened back when I was a child. My mom was getting a psychic reading, and the reader looked down at me and said, "I think your daughter died of food poisoning in a past life."
Oh.
And it wouldn't be such a far stretch if she did something in the food industry in this lifetime. Well, as it turned out, I was a little bit phobic around food. I was food preservation, food labels, food mold and bacteria and expiration dates. I mean, I was just always like, let me see, is this fresh? And so this whole kind of obsession around food innately was already there.
Wow.
So I did end up getting, ironically, if you call it that, a degree in food science and dietetics and nutrition 30 something years ago, and had always been really interested in the science of food and how it worked, how it broke down, why microwaves are bad, what's great, what's most bioavailable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was really very interested in all that. Is it my dharma? Is it from the past life? Probably. And then it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I had this wonderful opportunity to work for a spiritual chef. She happened to be a high profile chef and celebrity chef in Hollywood. And I started to see that they too understood about frequency, energy, and vibration, the consciousness of food, praying over your food, raising the vibration of food, and all the things that come with supporting your body temple. So flash forward, I have this spiritual background. I'm now very much attuned to food and spirituality. I'm tuned to the science. And then flash forward, I'm taking a food healing, advanced food healing. It's always been my passion my whole life, whether I'm doing other things or not. And then I got to talking to a colleague, and we determined we were producing meditation albums. And anyways, we determined that our other food was passion, in addition to oracle cards and tarot cards. And the food oracle was born because a food healing oracle deck was birthed
Mm.
back in 2020. The first one, we had 60 cards, 60 foods. It was a huge hit. We started creating certification programs. And so I kind of fell into really my own natural rhythm of being the food oracle, because it's a very unique set of circumstances to have a conversation with the divine and spirit, channeling the higher realms and archangels and ascended masters, and channeling all this higher realm wisdom, Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, about what's going on in food and why we're choosing certain foods to eat, and what are we craving at the grocery store, and what does food have to do with chakras and nature's five elements? What does food have to do with the archangels and ascended masters? What does food have to do with tarot? Well, I started to download it all, create all these sort of understandings of how to look at food and determine how to have a high vibrational wellness. So then that was that. And then 2 years later, 2.5 years later, a second deck was born. Because believe it or not, I thought 60 foods, channeling that was amazing. A lot of food, a lot of wisdom. People would write me, I want more food. I need to have more foods, interpreted, channeled, deciphered. And 60 more foods were born, plus some bonus cards, so 124 foods. And that has been pretty much what's been out there until I've now started to dive into doing a third deck. But the whole premise around it all is becoming this food oracle to teach intuitive food therapy, so everyone can learn to be their own oracle of how to feed their body.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
shortest way I can tell you how it all came together.
And do you see a growing conscientious collective of people paying more attention to how they eat, their
I
health,
do.
and when in their in eating?
100%. I do, not only in the US, but I see it in Canada. I see it on all my travels. I was recently in Costa Rica. I was recently in Greece. I was recently in Istanbul. I just came back from Nepal, Kathmandu. And no matter where you go, food is very revered.
Mhm.
Food is ceremonial. Food is healing. Food is the community gathering energetically for any family gathering, good, bad, weddings, funerals, the whole thing. But I do believe that people are 100% are waking up to knowing there's more to what goes on their plate. There's more that goes into when I'm at the grocery store and I'm craving that broccoli. I wonder what that means. And having now a guide that people can say, Oh, okay. Food, broccoli, growth. Maybe there's something I need to learn about. I'm growing, I'm learning that there's something going on. Maybe need to evolve more growing spiritually in my heart chakra. Think about the color broccoli. Lots of things. I bring that guide, and I definitely think people are more interested. Absolutely. I see it more now in the high vibrational wellness. People want to learn how to, when they're seeing something, feeling something, dealing with the world today and their stuff happening every moment, how they can use food to ground them
Mm,
or how to get them out of emotional deficit.
yeah.
Yeah, they
I've
are.
definitely noticed, traveling abroad in other countries that, yeah, it's, it's definitely a different cultural difference between the West here in the States than it is in other countries. Because, yeah, it's like they treat food as a celebratory thing.
Mhm.
It's a sacred gathering. They treat it more. They treat food more sacred than we do here. I mean, here it's like fast
Total
foods and it's just,
reverence.
yeah,
Total reverence.
yeah.
Yes, they do. And I think for people who are spiritual at all levels and walks, they're more conscientious. The vegans, whether it's for health reasons or animal rights reasons, have their walk, their path. I think that people are who are more awake are more apt to want to be more discerning of what foods go in their body, not to have genetically modified ingredients,
Mm.
not to have foods that have been sprayed on with pesticides. They're more awake to attuning this body. The yoginis, the yoga community eat consciously. It's just embedded into who they are. So I think that yes, I'm seeing a lot of people are doing, seeing, understanding that this is an important way.
Mm.
And that's what I talk about in the new book, High Vibrational Wellness, how to stay in that high sense of being so you can be more enlightened, more intuitive, open up the third eye, channel, do seances, do drum circles. In order to do that, it requires your body to be light, bright, and available to the spirit.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
speaking of the book, let me bring that up there for those who want to see what it looks like. And where
Yes.
so where can they find this? Obviously, I see Amazon.
Yeah, they can go right to Amazon. And if you're a Prime member, it's free. You can go to Center for Intuitive Food Therapy. I do have them there, and I can sign them. But if you're in Amazon, you can get them anywhere in the world. We're in every Amazon worldwide.
Hmm.
The book came out in July. It did hit like #1 in 7 countries. It was
Wow.
the feedback's been enormous.
Yeah. It's a very
And the
colorful.
book's pretty cool. I'm the lead author and I do the introductions. I kind of set the pace, set the course, right? No pun intended, but I lay out the courses of really what you're going to be experiencing in this book. And it's not just food that we're putting in our bodies. And this is 25 authors, not just me. I'm the lead author and came up with the idea. But there's actually 24 others who also have told the story about how they have gone through something in their life, somewhere along the way, whether it was a trauma or just a moment in their life where things weren't the greatest, and how they came out the other side and chose a method of healing. Because when you think about it, and I said it's not just about food, it's food for thought, right?
Hmm.
The old adage, food for thought. How do you feed your mind? How do you feed your soul? How do you feed your body? And so we need to have all those areas looked at for high vibrational wellness. There's no question. You can't just eat and everything's great and then leave out something else, a negative mindset. But you're very healthy, but you're
Yeah.
not. Or not doing spiritual practice, prayer, meditation. You need to really have that sort of well-rounded balance. And that's what I think why this book has turned into something quite special is because we're providing you 25 ways to do mind, body, spirit
Yeah.
eating.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
the the deck that I'm going to bring up here in just a second here. There we go. So this is the volume. This is the second volume, correct?
Yep, that's volume 2, second helpings. You know, when something's so good, you want seconds.
Yeah.
So we had to keep the food theme going, and yeah, this is second helpings, another 60 foods, and you don't need to buy the first one, which almost I have to say is almost out of print until I
Wow.
can see. And I've done multiple printings, but the second one we're still pretty stocked, and
There's
it's
the
amazing. Oh, there it is.
there's the first one.
I remember you had. I remember your reading specifically about garlic. Oh my God,
Yes.
I'll never forget that. I might have to remind people because all the time I tell stories, and of course in the new book High-Vibrational Wellness, I'm telling stories too about when I'm at different festivals, and this person came up to me. But yours was really good too. But yes, so this is the second one. It's been out, and it's another 60 cards, and there's some bonus cards, and it really is striking a chord, and it's a little bit different than the first one. It wasn't planned that way.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the difference? There's 60 foods, there's 60 channels, but this one felt a little bit darker. I don't know why. Not darker, but a little bit more like pay attention. Some of the words were very direct.
Yeah.
I think this is what life was like during, and this one actually has been written kind of during COVID. The other one
Mm.
came out just as COVID was starting, so that one was written before, but this was in the thick of it. And I think the world was like, okay, I need to pivot. Whatever I'm doing now isn't working. I need to like change the direction of my path. So this is a little bit more direct than the first one, which is like, okay, you want to get there. This is what you need to do. You know, stop pussyfooting around. This is the directive. So there's some real things like start looking at your regrets. They're weighing you down. You know, what is going on in your world of betrayal? What are you angry about? I mean, things literally, the world was like that. People felt betrayed, not knowing if what was happening in the world. And so I mean, I should pull that back and say it's not harsher. It's more divine masculine. It's more, this is what you need to do. The first one is more divine feminine. I want to be love. I want to be peace and joy and, joy and happiness and, all these, I want to be free. Ah, and then the second one comes in like, oh yeah, this is how you got to get there. So I
Yeah.
really think they're mated.
Wow.
And so you can buy them individually. And I also think more for the spiritually evolved, the second one is really one I think they would resonate with. So you don't have to
Mm.
buy the first one they're totally different. In fact, the second one has brand new spreads. They're a little bit more sophisticated than the first one. I go more into archangels and nature's five elements and laying out the spreads. So, anyways, take your pick. They're both great. You should get both eventually, but I think number 2 is a lot stronger. A lot happened between first and second.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you also have a children's book out, correct?
Yes. That was my first foray into writing. That is my first book I've ever written, and it's kind of making a comeback. It's called Finn's Giant Leap. It's a spiritual book. It's about a spiritual awakening. And it's not just for kids, but yes, it's a kid's book.
Yeah.
But it's really about this frog who has an awakening about learning that all he ever needed was already inside. It's stuff that adults would like to be remembered, remember for themselves as well. But yeah, he meets an angel or fairy, however one can interpret who he meets, who reminds him how great he is already. He
Wow.
doesn't need anyone else to tell him. And he goes on adventures and gets into a little bit of trouble. And then he finds out that he can get out of that trouble by by certain things that happen in his life. And it's really a calling card also for adults. So I feel that parents, and I think it's making a comeback because we just made it digital on
Mm.
Amazon. You can get that. We did like a remastered book. And then I'm now inspired to write the second adventure, and it's been like 15 years, but
Wow.
it seems to having a new resurgence. Min's Giant Leap. It's really cute book.
Now, before we move further, even though it's scrolling down on the bottom your website for those who are watching, but for those who are listening, where can they find you?
Yes, Center for Intuitive Food Therapy.com. And I know that's a mouthful. So if you mentioned it CIFT or SIFT, that's what we like to say. So you actually can also, in addition to Center for Intuitive Food Therapy.com, you can go to CIFTofficial.com, CIFTofficial.com.
Mm,
A lot easier.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, on there is my website. It's the store where you can get a lot of these products. They're not all at Amazon, so you can get them there. And also my retreats. It's really kind of the whole hub. You want to take some classes and learn more about what is in your refrigerator, what is it that, how to go shopping. In fact, in the new book, you put up High Vibrational Wellness. I even include in that chapter a prayer and an affirmation on how you can send yourself to get really clear on what your body needs before you go into the store. Because what you may or your body may need emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, what it may want even the day before or that morning may be totally different. So if you get really clear, really present, and to call in some sort of invocation like the one I gave you, you will be walking in knowing exactly what your body's attuned for in that moment. And I think that's really important for digestion, for balance, for really understanding. It could be a mineral, right? It's not just woo woo, it's physically like, what does my body need right now?
yeah.
And you can draw a card and it will tell you.
That's very important. And I've noticed this too within the last, at least within the last year. It's sad that as we get older, we start to pay attention to our body. We start
I know.
almost to the point where we have to because it's telling us something.
Yeah, well, you're getting some knocks on the door, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then, but being conscientious of what I eat. Um, I've made it a habit as soon as I walk into the grocery store. I don't go anywhere else except a beeline straight to the produce department. Very first thing.
Perfect.
Because then that's where the food starts talking to you.
Yes.
The colors will stand out because those are the colors are the first things. And then you'll start to get everything else. And as an intuitive, yes, it makes more sense. But for those who don't eat fruits and vegetables, yes, it can be a challenge.
Well, I think the colors play a pivotal role because the colors can relate to the chakras. The colors can relate to nature's five elements. They can relate to pH. They
Mm,
can relate to so many things. And let's just say you just had a horrible day at work and you got passed up for the promotion or things weren't going in your favor and you're feeling angry. You're all in the red.
yeah,
And you think about that red. Red is hot. It's acidic almost on a pH scale would be on the lower vibration. On the David Hawkins scale, which is that vibratory scale, that would be low. Red would be still low. So how can you improve that? You can bring in, if it was like the fire element, you would want to bring in the water element to cool, fan the
mm,
flames of being so angry. If you were looking at your chakra system, you would be looking at like how to balance the root chakra. If you were in the pH, you would want to say, how can I get more alkaline? You'd be looking for something food-wise that would basically cool things down and bring you back into balance. So a color can mean a lot and say a lot in spiritual and physical ways.
yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. Now you've got there's a couple other books that are on your website. Something Oracle. Let me bring this one up that we can describe this one. The
Oh, yeah.
Energy Healers Oracle.
I love that. So actually, I have to give a lot of credit to this series. This is actually number two, and this just came out, Energy Healers Oracle Volume 2, and I have a chapter in there I actually did a little bit of a segue. I didn't speak about food. I actually spoke about my time on my last retreat in Costa Rica, where had a shaman on the beach and he tuned into the energy of my group and he hand carved a labyrinth. And so I wrote, a modality because the Energies Healers Oracle is very unique modalities from around the world.
Mm.
And I was in her first one as well, and that's where we introduced intuitive food therapy. But in this one, I introduced a labyrinth activation and how to go from anguish to acceptance regarding a loss. And so we use a labyrinth activation in this book, and that's my chapter 2. And in the first Energy Healers Oracle, it really kind of put me on the map because she's from London and she handpicked oracles from all over the world. And she had not even heard of a food oracle or food that can talk in this regard.
Yeah.
So that was the first book to come out, I think, a year or two ago. And it was at that moment the publisher said, I loved your chapter. I love what you're doing. And we discussed, wouldn't it be great if we had a book that I did? And at the time, the book that you put up, High Vibrational Wellness, it actually started off as High Vibrational Eating.
Mm.
And you see there's tons of food there.
Yeah.
Then, as I told you earlier, I realized, and I had gathered chefs, I had gathered food coaches. I was really kind of like food for the body, food, food, food. And then it occurred to me as I started to talk to more people and colleagues and looked at how they heal past life regression and Reiki and, some other ones, I realized then high vibrational wellness is a better fitting name because eating, I didn't want people thinking it was some spiritual cookbook. You see high vibrational eating and you see all these great foods that are in all these incredible patterns and sacred geometry, but it really was the full scope of eating for your mind, body, and soul. So, yes, the Energy Healers Oracle is what birthed this. And so I'm proud to be in those 2 books. Yep. And then that's when the publisher, uh, Lord of Franco from Brave Healer Productions said, yeah, you should have your own book. And I said, you know what? Yeah, that would be amazing. And that's how High Vibrational Wellness kind of came together.
Wow.
Yeah. Just one thing, one thing leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing.
Yeah. Now there's the green cover. They're so small I can't barely. I should title the blocks, but you got the top exotic foods for natural healing.
Yes, also became a bestseller. It's just so great. So I realized after all this time spending with the Oracle decks, which I felt was important. I wasn't just choosing food from America. I really wanted to, bring forward the whole global planetary system in the cultures and foods that may be in the Isles of Trinidad or foods that may be in other areas that are not from the US. So I wanted to showcase some of the more important foods that are in the decks. And soursop, which is boop right in the middle,
Yeah.
came up. And the feeling was we have these spiritual people out there, and then we have people who may not be very interested. You have these skeptics, or you have people not so awake quite yet. Um, I don't think those are the ones listening to your podcast, but what I would say is that I did choose some of the foods. I chose my top 10, just as a simple little healing handbook. But then what I did is I took studies that were done from the National Institute of Health that were doing studies on these foods for cancer, diabetes, cholesterol, heart disease, and showing people that I'm not just, this food oracle isn't just speaking from the ethers. These foods are healing. These foods are medicine. And it's not just for the esoteric holistic community. The National Institute of Health are doing multiple studies. So I provided in this book little excerpts of
Yeah.
studies based on the different foods and the different diseases that they were, supporting. And I think that really resonates. And no, I didn't say, no, you have to travel, you have to go to Thailand to get this. Or, like I did provide where you could probably get it wherever you are, whether it's online or an Asian market. I provided some clues as to, and this one might not be better. You can't get this one fresh. This one you might need to get dried. So I just kind of gave people this whole skinny
Mm.
on my top 10 foods that I thought were important, as well as why, how, etc. And
Yeah.
I really love that book, and it's pretty popular.
And when it
It's like
comes to
a little
these,
healing handbook. It's tiny.
yeah, and when it comes to these exotic foods that are hard to get in the U.S., um, I mean, I try to get as fresh as possible, especially organic, at least if it says it's organic. But when
Yes.
it comes to these exotic foods that you wouldn't normally find it, where's the best place to get them, and how's the best way to get them? Like you said,
Well,
dried
I'm a
or
huge fan of doing your own gardening,
mm, yeah,
depending on where you go. That would be first and foremost. Uh, I had read a book years ago, and it's about this nature spirit, and I think it was out of Russia. I forgot, Anastasia, I think it was called. It was like a four-book series.
yeah,
And she was this nature spirit who had said that if you spit on the seeds and you put those seeds into the ground, that the DNA and the energetics and the frequency of the food would grow according to your own DNA and your constitution.
wow,
So I thought that was cool because it's really like customized gardening.
yeah,
So I remember one year I was living in New Mexico, my husband and I and our daughters. I'm like, all right, everybody spit into the bowl. And they all just thought I was nuts. They thought I had three heads. But I thought it was the coolest thing because we had the most proliferating garden. It was incredible that it was like custom made for our four energy systems. It was great. But yes, gardening I think would be ideal. Secondly, farmers markets,
hmm,
buying local, because less processing, less handling, less traveling from other countries. I mean, there's a long journey that a lot of these foods have to take, and they, I believe, break down. And then you go and cook them or boil them or steam them or fry them, and then that's another element of breaking down the bioavailability that they first had.
yeah.
So, as close to the vest as possible is what I say.
There's I've been getting some multiple advertisements. I want to get your opinion on them. These new, actually, it's not new, but some of them are really elaborate. It's like, wow, I want one of those. It's those new indoor hydroponic gardens that you can have. They're like vertical. There's towers, and you can
Oh, the
build.
towers.
Yeah,
Oh, I
is
have to say, I
awesome.
think they're great.
Yeah,
I have someone I know who sells them, and it's just amazing. It's like in a week she's got, every type of leaf lettuce. I was like, that is quick. I think that's amazing, and I'm a big fan of them. And they're a little expensive,
yeah,
but what I love about, I mean, I live in Florida and we have great weather despite the hurricanes,
yep.
all the time. But there's lots of people who live where it's dark. I mean, I lived in Sweden, it was dark all winter. Like
Wow.
that would be so great that they were in their house growing those, or somewhere back east or Minnesota or whatever. I happen to be a fan of those. If you can grow those and get as many natural herbs all year long because everything's so seasonal and
Yeah,
sometimes you need the sun, and in those cases things continue to thrive. We ever had the great blackout that people keep talking about? I don't
yeah.
know. It would just be nice to know that you have food. If you can't do gardening outside, I think that's a nice alternative.
Especially the eliminating of the insects, because I always have insect issues. So.
What do you mean you have insect issues?
Well, it's just it depends on what it is. That cucumbers, I can't keep cucumbers. I can't keep
Got it.
tomatoes. There's certain
Yeah. Is
fruits or
this inside or
vegetables
outside?
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about maybe getting one of those next year. So, and you said a friend of yours actually sells them.
She does, yeah.
Wow.
And I've always wanted to get one, and I'm sure one day I will. and I just haven't seen them anywhere in the world. I think that's a US thing, but maybe they do them at other places. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Huh. Potential sponsor for the show.
we might have to have a conversation with her.
Right?
Yeah, she's pretty great. Um,
Cool.
and
Cool.
you know, speaking of the bugs, I don't know if you know that I am the US importer of Ayurvedic organic wellness teas. I have
Really?
a whole new brand called, well, we have Nourish Your Soul Show. That's my brand, Nourish Your Soul and Nourish Your Soul Retreats. But I now have Nourish Your Soul Ayurveda, and I'm the US and Canadian importer of this family secret centuries old formula of these health and wellness Ayurvedic teas
Ooh.
that I have 13 blends: hair, skin, immunity, blood pressure, weight, vision, joints. I mean, it just goes on, as well as a whole line of pure organic incense. And I was literally at the Tibetan nunneries where they were praying and hand making these incense in front of me. And so we infused, or fused, it's the ingredients of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. But I just said that because you reminded me of the bugs, because we just created one is like a mosquito repellent, but it's really nice. It's anti-mosquito, but these teas have been making a huge difference. And so he had sought me out knowing what a foodie I am, and I got to learn so much about these herbs that are grown at the base of the Himalayan mountains.
Huh.
And these herbs are now, a lot of them, I'm so inspired and loved by them, by these in these teas and incense. They are part of my third deck.
Ooh.
I'm starting to really explore and channel what these foods are all about and what they're wanting to tell us. But
Huh.
the same website, you can see the teas that are on there, the teas and the incense. I now have them on there. Eventually, we'll be changing things over, but it's growing exponentially, this brand.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking next year, since this year's almost out, next year is putting a marketplace on Conscious Radio Network for any of our
Yeah.
guests that have product and stuff like that.
Oh,
Um,
count me
yeah,
in.
yeah, I'll shoot you
Yeah.
definitely some more information on that, and I'm still kind of learning that process, a drop ship or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
Well, we're actually even developing, because it's so big and happening so fast, and I have several endeavors that I'd really like to see someone who really resonates with this pick up like a distributorship for their state. Like, you take California, you take New York, you take Delaware, and let's get these teas into the bodies for high vibrational wellness. It's making, I mean, during COVID, they're the good immunity, everything, I call them good. They're good immunity. Everything starts with good. But the good immunity was the first one I brought to the States. And during the COVID years, they had little cups. People were lined up to get this tea over there. And
wow.
then I brought it here, and we've had a lot of things, different, um, colds and flus and stuff, and it's worked great. Just amazing.
Oof,
Really good for
wow.
flying. I always make sure I drink before and after for my flights with the tea. Good immunity.
Yeah, good immunity. Definitely, we'll have to talk about that. We'll have to talk about the
Yeah.
marketplace.
On the marketplace. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love that.
yeah. So, well, before we wrap up again, where they can find you for the listeners.
Yep. I would go to CIF, like Frank T, CIFTofficial.com. And the CIFT, is, just so you know, stands for Center for Intuitive Food Therapy.
Cool.
.com. I do that too.
And we'll also have that information in the show notes, so that way if people can click on it and off they go.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
you're very, very welcome. So before we go, what would you like to offer as a takeaway for our listeners today?
Well, a takeaway and a giveaway. How's that?
Yeah.
I speak about food, and I speak about words that relate to them. And I do have a sweet meditation called Positivity,
Mm.
our Peaches card. So you can actually go to centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com, and you do that /positivity, and you can get a free download of the meditation and start to see how food's talking to you. And my takeaway for you is to trust your gut, listen to that intuition, start to explore what and why you're choosing certain foods for dinner that night, and see if there's a connection for you. I believe you will see that there is. Open up your refrigerator, take a look and see what's clearly trying to get your attention.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it's the foods that have 1,000 names you can't pronounce, but foods that are whole and plant-based and from the Divine Mother, whether it's a plant, from the tree, from the ground, and start rooting yourself back into realizing that you are nature and that you should be eating according to nature. So it can do, this beautiful body, keep you well preserved and full of longevity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Especially the gut. Like you said, the gut is it does talk to you. It's alive. It's a living multi-organism thing that's always getting your attention, whether you're hungry or not. At least it seems like.
And you should trust it.
And trust it. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Um.
solar plexus for those on the other side of this, of learning what's really going on in the gut. It's your power center. It's where your emotional, if you go a little lower, the sacral is your creative center. This whole area has a lot to tell you
Hmm.
on all levels.
And that is important too. The gut. That's gut health. Is we don't have any health unless we have good gut health.
True that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the food oracle comes in right there. Let me bring that up. That way people
Yes.
know what it looks like.
Food Healing Oracle deck. Honestly, nourishing wisdom from Mother Earth. In this case, it's more nourishing wisdom. So, yeah, pick up second helpings, and the first one are not at Amazon. They're on my website.
Yeah.
And the book,
Those who want
High
to.
Vibrational Wellness, there you go.
There it is.
There's number one and number two.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the those are on my website, and then the new book, High Vibrational Wellness, you can get on Amazon or at my website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Lainie.
May
Thank you
everyone
very
stay
much.
infinitely nourished.
Yes. Yes. So for those who are becoming more conscientious of their bodies, their diet, um, definitely go Center for Intuitive Food Therapy.com.
That's it.
Lainie, thank you. Very welcome. Namaste, my friend.
Namaste. Good to see you. Thank you for all you do.
Pleasure. And we'll I'll get a hold of you as far as the marketplace at the beginning of the year and stuff like that, and we'll
Love it.
get some ideas. Cool.
Perfect. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to The Seance, and we will see you next time.